This is South Jersey Radio, and I'm your host, Mike Wiggins. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I'm thrilled to bring you an interview with the one and only Christine Palma. Christine is a veteran in the theme park industry and the general manager of the OC Waterpark in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is quite possibly among the coolest attractions in the entire Ocean City boardwalk. And for parents out there who are looking for things to do with their family, it's among the best of options in terms of price and value. You just can't be beat. Now, be forewarned. After this conversation, all I can think about is shooting off the 10-foot waterfalls, landing in the elevated sky pools, and floating down a lazy river in the middle of summer. Meanwhile, it's the dead of winter and there's still snow melting on the ground outside. In any case, let's get into it. Okay, so Christine, for folks who may not know you, can you tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do?
My name is Christine Palma, and I am the general manager of the OC Waterpark in Ocean City, New Jersey. We operate and run the water park for the summer season, and we also operate golf in the boardwalk stand, which also has a Ben's Pretzels.
Very cool. What is the summer season? When does it begin and when does it end?
So the water park season, give or take Memorial Day to Labor Day, but we do open up around Easter on the boardwalk with golf in the parking lots. So we'll have the golf by Easter.
Actually, I didn't know that. I'm excited. This sounds like a very interesting field of work. What was it originally that got you into this field?
I picked up an ad on the radio when I graduated from high school for my government, and I came in right in the season after the season had started. And I worked in several different departments at Six Flags: rides, admissions, security. And the more time I spent there, the more I enjoyed being around, the more I wanted to be in other areas of the park. So I got involved as much as I can. Within a couple of years, Hurricane Harbor opened, and I was lucky enough to be on the team that started Hurricane Harbor. So I was there on day one to see a new park grow and build, and I was there for several years. I was lucky to work with Hall of Fame level managers in the water park world. So having that background and enjoying what we were doing, it gets in your blood and you can't get it out. Maybe it's the chlorine, I don't know, but once you're in and you see the smiles on the people's faces, you can't go back.
I am beginning to feel that myself just listening to you.
Well, there's always time. You can always come in the industry. We're always looking for people.
Yeah, I'll come over from the dark side. I'm looking up Hurricane Harbor now. I apologize. I'm a huge ignoramus. What is that? Is that Central Jersey? Is that North Jersey?
Yep, it's Jackson. So, I mean, debatable Central Jersey. Like, I grew up in the Trenton area, so Central Jersey very much exists to me, but I would call it that Central 195 corridor.
Yeah, I'm going to alienate some folks by calling it Central Jersey and blurring the lines of the definition of South Jersey and all that. We don't need to get into that right now.
Hey, I was born and bred in Central Jersey. It will always be Central Jersey, so I'll die on that mountain.
You and me both, apparently.
I got Philadelphia and New York channels, so that's what it was.
All right, so fast forward to today, Ocean City Water Park. Tell us a bit about what that's like and give us some background on the history of the park and where it started relative to where it is now.
So the OC Water Park actually started as Gillian's Water Park, which was born out of Gillian's Fun Deck. For those who have been around Ocean City for a longer amount of time, they will remember the Fun Deck is where Gillian started. They had rides on the deck and they had this. When they moved down the street to open up Gillian's here, the water park was built in its place. And around 1986, the water park opened. It was probably one of the original water parks up and down New Jersey, and there was a group of people that built most of them. So there's a very small group of people in New Jersey who kind of had a part in building all of them in Seaside and Keansburg and in Wildwood, in LBI. And a lot of those people are still around. So it's nice to be able to call on people who were there when it opened and who were part of that story. And recently, we are starting to improve things. We're refinishing things. We're adding a lot of theming. And we're talking about adding some rides and some new parts of the park that will make your experience that much better.
Got it. You might have said this. Gillian's Fun Deck.
Gillian's Fun Deck.
When did that open?
I think it was, what I'm hearing is about 50 years ago, because we're still dealing with structure that's existing from then. And then in 86, the rides were taken off and the water park was built on top.
Very interesting. Okay. What's this quick list of the rides that you've got today?
Yeah. So we have a really good variety of rides. We have our pirate ship, our kiddie structure. I mean, it's great for kids. There's several slides in there. That's getting a new paint job this year, so it'll look fun and fresh and exciting. We have our lazy river, which is amazing. It floats right around across by the boardwalk. And we have Splashdown, which is a shorter slide that dumps into 10 feet of water. We have the Serpentine slides, which are, I think, among the longest body slides in New Jersey or maybe on the East Coast. Each one of them is about 450 feet long, and they're body slides. So they're really cool. We have the tube slides, Tube Slide Journey, which is unique in that it comes down into a sky pond, if you will, that sits up above the park. So you kind of float into this big pool. And then from there, you come back down into the pool at the bottom. And we have an activity pool. And this year, very exciting, we are opening up a new splash pad. So we're adding a splash pad into the lower deck area for our smallest guests to provide more seating and to just expand that area of the park as a first step to some other things we're doing in the future.
Very cool. And I'm going to need to get some clips of these rides to show folks on these videos. Did I catch in there? You mentioned the short slide was 10 feet tall?
It's more than 10 feet tall, but when you get to the end of the slide, you're going to fly through the air about 10 feet, 15 feet into a 10 feet a pool.
That sounds epic. Okay, so short is meant to describe the length of the slide, not the fall.
Well, it's one of our shorter slides, so it's probably 50 feet, 75 feet. So it's a short slide with a big drop at the bottom.
Why are we having this conversation in December? I want to go out right now.
It's not as much fun right now.
Although I am sort of, what's the term? I don't think, yeah, I enjoy the pain of a cold plunge. I think masochist is a term that people frequently use. There are other negative connotations to that term. Anyway, all that said, I would be up for a dip in the cold water in December.
There's no water.
Well, that's a problem too, isn't it?
That's what makes the drop at the bottom a little not so great.
Can you not tell that I know nothing about this industry?
Well, all the water's out. We do our best all winter long to eliminate as much water as possible because water equals ice and ice is problems.
Precisely, yeah. It's not so much an industry concern. I'm just lacking in common sense, it would seem.
But in the summer, you're not going to get a cold plunge because the water's pretty warm. It's a lot of fun. And the nature of our park is that there's not a lot of lines. So things move quick. And you can ride multiple times in different ways. You can do your body slide, then a tube slide, and float around the river, and then have a snack or have lunch, and just kind of hang out. It's a great little park. We have beautiful cabanas you can hang out in, and most of the views you can see the ocean, and you can see all of Ocean City up and down the boardwalk.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We touched on the topic of draining the pool, and most of the fun of working at a water park is that you're not inside at your office, although your office has this fantastic view. What does the day-to-day look like in your world for folks on your team, for yourself?
Probably have one of the unique day-to-days as anybody. Every day is going to be different. No 2 days are ever going to be the same. At any given time, I could be handling computer issues. I could be cleaning toilets, fixing plumbing, balancing chemicals, teaching and training, paying bills and working in QuickBooks, providing first aid, cleaning dishes, making food. Like the list goes on and on. Anything that's happening there on any given day, an inspector could show up or a federal enforcement agency would come and make sure that we're doing what we're doing. So it's never the same twice. I am lucky to work with my husband, so it is very much a family affair. So our day-to-day also intertwines with our personal life, and my son who works in maintenance. So whether the three of us are in the pump room fixing a chlorinator, or whether we're all in the kitchen cleaning dishes or cooking food or helping the rush, we're all in it as a team no matter what. And the rest of my staff is my family. So without them, this park doesn't run. Without us working as a team and really pushing through, and the lunchtime rush at the food stand or the morning rush at the front gate when everybody comes in, it's never different. It's never the same ever. Some days I wish it was, but it will never be.
It sounds like it should be a TV show. And if it was, I would absolutely watch it.
We've talked about doing podcasts about this water park life. So maybe it would get some traction.
Absolutely. We could do a series. I am 100% up for that. You strike me as someone who encounters all sorts of strange problems. I think that may as well be on the job description. You also strike me as someone who handles all of that very well.
We're the jack of all trades. We literally have to know how to do anything. At any given time, we're dealing with anything. It could be water flowing, a leak or it could be a plumbing issue, or it could be a cleaning issue, or it could be an employee. Like we have a staff of 150 employees. We could end up dealing with teenage issues. I have 150 kids all summer long. They're my children. Their parents and their teachers pawn them off on me for 3 months, and then I give them back in September. But they're my children, and they act like 16s. They're 16 to 20-year-olds, and they come with their wonderfulness, if that's a word, and they come with their problems. And I love every part of that.
Yeah, you deserve lots of credit.
I get the winters off, so it's okay. It balances. That's where the balance of life comes in.
So looking forward, right? You mentioned that this water park saw its inception. It began in earnest in the mid to late 80s. And you've been hard at work since you arrived a few years ago. What's your outlook, right? What are your plans for maintenance and upgrades and the future of the park?
Park is currently undergoing a ton of upgrades that the general public will never see. They're important. They're vital to making sure that our water's clean. We've had filtration upgrades and we've had structural upgrades, and we're repairing things that you would never notice. But on the other hand, we're also now starting to get into the fun stuff. We're starting to remodel bathrooms. We're starting to make things cleaner. We're starting to paint. We're starting to bring up some of those things that have just kind of sat by the wayside for the last 10, 15 years. If you're familiar with the park, you know that there hasn't been a lot of upgrades, if any at all. If you came here when you were a child in the 90s, you come back now, you're going to have the same park. And although we don't want to lose, we also want to move into the 2020s. We want to move to advance those things. So what we're trying to do is we're now upgrading our slide surfaces. We're putting in a spray pad this year. So we're adding new attractions. We're trying to add more seating because we know that's a huge issue. There's just not enough physical space to put people. So we're coming up with creative ways to add seating, things that maybe I can't totally discuss right now, but stay tuned. And there's going to be something big coming in the next year or two, and it's going to include seating, and it's going to possibly include a new ride, and it's possibly going to include more water. And we're super excited about it, and we're moving in that direction. But the smaller steps we have to take to make sure we can go in that direction and to make sure that we're still offering our guests the best experience we possibly can. We got new lockers this year. We're, like I said, adding the spray park, but we also moved around the rock wall and moved around the lower area so that it's more customer friendly, so that there's more space to relax and enjoy. So with doing all the things that the boring stuff that you'll never see in the background in the first year or two, now we're getting into the fun stuff. In addition to, my personal goal is to bring more theming into the park, make it feel more tropical and feel like you're really escaping. Right now, it's kind of a concrete water park. There's not a whole lot of color or tropical plants. Your lazy river experience is going to change. It's not just going to be floating around the lazy river. It's going to be an experience. We want it to be, I don't want to say Disney-esque experience, but when you get in that lazy river, I want to tell a story. I want you to float around, and I want you to, oh, look, there's the bamboo, and there's that, or, oh, here comes the tipping bucket. And we're upgrading a lot of that stuff. It is a difficult process. It is hard to retrofit into an older park. So we're coming across a lot of challenges, and it's taking maybe longer than we want it to, but we're moving in that direction. I went to 3 conferences this year, and we are working diligently to move into those things. I'm talking to dozens of designers and manufacturers to bring some of that stuff to our park, to bring it up into the level of water parks that are being built now.
Very interesting. Those jobs, the design and the maintenance, are you having to go to great lengths to find specialists to do a lot of this, manage the facility, or is everyone local to Ocean City?
So there's a mix. The beautiful thing about this park is it was built by people who are mostly local and are still local. There was a huge ride manufacturer down in Cape May, Fred Langford, who built many of the slides up and down the East Coast. All the rock work was done by a group here in New Jersey. There's actually a construction company that's built 3 of my water parks that I've worked in that are local to Cape May. So we have a unique group of people here who do those things, but also with our connections, with my connections in the World Water Park Association and with our national connections, we're getting help from outside. we're getting help from bigger companies. Companies are specialized in helping these older parks move into the right direction by getting out of our local groups. Specifically, we're able to experience and do more. I think some parks get stuck in what they think they should be and don't ever ask what other people think they should be and what other ideas are. And I maybe get caught on the wrong end of trying to figure out too many things. Like, I want to know all the things. Before I make a decision, I want to know what's out there. So I spend a lot of time talking to, visiting, and going to other parks. I spend more time than I care to share going to other parks and enjoying other parks just to kind of see. Now, it drives my family crazy because I'm the one peeking behind the curtain to try to figure out how they're doing certain things. But I think it's important to go to these places and say, oh, look, that's really neat. Like, for example, this year we painted our cabanas. Our cabanas were they were fine. They were beautiful. They were good cabanas. But we were visiting another park during one of our shows and they had painted them. And they had just brought so much color and life to the area that I would have it never would have entered my mind. But I was friends with the manager of that park out in Vegas. And I was like, did you just paint them? He's like, yeah, we just painted them. It was great. And they look amazing. And it brought so much color and life into our cabana area. It was a no brainer. But unless you're out there constantly looking and constantly hitting up your trade shows and seeing what's new and what's out there, you're going to get stuck. And I think for a long time, this park may have been stuck. And I have so many ideas and so much fun stuff. And if you've been there in the last year or two, you have seen some of it and you've seen the color we're adding and you've seen some of the extra things we're putting in. And I think that's the key, right? I want it to be someplace fun, but I also want to come back next year and be like, ooh, what's new? Or what they do this year? What kinds of things do we have? So that's important. And I think that we're trying very hard to do that. So we are including companies from Florida to California up to upstate New York in a lot of these projects.
Very cool. Creating a new water park. I can see it now.
And I'm becoming an expert on this too. So when you add to my list of things you know how to do, creating a new water park is one of those things.
You may mention that there's all sorts of maintenance and upgrades that took place that people will never see. And I can't even fathom what work must go in for the sake of safety and to keep things running smoothly. What are some examples of the unsexy work that goes on invisible to folks?
Like the part where we're crawling in the sand underneath the water park every year, pulling plugs. Our whole water park sits up on pilings, hundreds and hundreds of pilings. And we have multiple engineers that go through each year and have to check every single one of them and checking the structures. I have engineers that come through who look at the slide structures. They look at the staircase structures. They look at the pilings. They're looking at everything there is inside the park. We are regulated by multiple agencies in New Jersey. We have the Department of Health, obviously. We have the Department of Community Affairs, which is the ride safety department. We have the fire inspectors. We have the local inspectors. We have the Department of Labor. We even have, surprisingly, the Department of Elevators and Pipe Fitting or something. There's some sort of weird elevator boiler company that has to come and take care of us because we have a boiler. So we're very highly regulated and we have to make sure, one of the things we did the first year was we just refinished all of our slides. The slide surfaces weren't as smooth as maybe they should be, and they were chipping. And we made the decision to completely remove the old coatings and put new coatings on. And they're brand new now. The slides are in great shape. When they were manufactured in 1986, they were manufactured different than they are now. And the thickness of the fiberglass and it's a better quality than it is now. Now, granted, they're heavier and there's better things that engineering has done now, but we can refinish those slides multiple times and still maintain these awesome slides. Our filtration room we replaced 10 valves last year and had to replumb the entire filtration in order to make sure that we were maximizing the water cleaning and making sure that the water was flowing in the right directions and making sure that everything was up to the highest standard that was absolutely possible. We've redone electrical systems. We've re-put in new electrical panels. We've rerun wires. Our internet connections are 100 times better. When things run under the boardwalk, animals chew them. So you get connection issues. So if we're on the boardwalk and we're trying to get a signal and they're running a register and you get a phone call that they can't run credit card transactions. And those are things that happen in the middle, of course, when it's the busiest. So you have to crawl underneath, you have to rerun wires, you got to resplice them together. It becomes, these are all things that we're trying to proactively do now. We're trying to proactively fix the pumps and motors. Every year, we're going to have one that's a problem. It's just the nature of the beast. Any water park I've ever worked in, whether it's brand new or whether it's 30 years old, there's going to be a pump in the beginning of the year that's going to give us a problem. Just, I don't know why it happens, but it does. So we are proactively trying to make sure that we're getting ahead of those problems so that it doesn't affect our opening day or so that we don't lose the water. We're putting in valves where there were valves before so that we don't lose hundreds of thousands of gallons of water when we have a power outage, which also happened. So painting things, repairing concrete. But I think the most important thing, and I've said this before, is bringing in those engineers and having that commitment to make sure that we're bringing in the professionals that can make sure that we still have the safest park. It's 30 years old. We need to be super diligent in making sure that our park is the safest park that's out there. That what seems sometimes when you have a lot of catwalks and walkways and things that are elevated above the ground, a lot of people think, ooh, that's scary. I need to make sure so that I can sleep at night that all this is going to be safe for our guests.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that and being a parent myself. It's good to hear the attention to detail and the care that's put into all the little things that go into safety. Is there anything else like that you want to mention on the safety front?
Well, there's two things that we deal with, right? There's the cleanliness of our water, obviously. And the story that I told you that I'm happy to share is years ago, I had talked to a guest and they were concerned about, I don't know, it seemed like a guest maybe with eczema or some maybe mosquito bite, something that didn't look pretty, something that was a little bit gross for a guest to see another guest in the pool with. And we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be swimming. So she'd come to me and she was a little over the top, but she's like, I don't think water parks are safe. And I think that there's a world in which you shouldn't allow people like that. I'm like, well, I can't talk to that person about what's wrong with them. It's against the law. That's where we are. I said, but if there were things that you could catch in a water park, if you could catch a disease, if you could catch the flu or any of these, even COVID, we joked about COVID, about all of us water park people just wanted to be cool. I think that's the safest place we can be. We all just wanted to jump in the pool. That's all. But I explained to her, I said, listen, if you could catch things in pools, if that was a problem, then pools wouldn't exist. Water parks wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be able to put thousands of people through it because there would be a constant worry of being sick. The water is probably the cleanest water you'll ever have in your life. The water is going to be cleaner than your neighbor's pool. It's going to be cleaner than your pool. It's filtered more times. It's filtered more heavily. It's watched more closely. There's so much more that goes into it. It's so highly regulated that, and again, I emphasize, if it were ever a problem that you could get a disease, they're so incredibly rare that the chances of you getting them are almost nil. If you could catch these things in a pool, they wouldn't exist. Water parks wouldn't even be a thing. I put my kids into them. I swim in them. I have no problem. Even at the end of the day, when there's all kinds of extra stuff in the pool, it's still the cleanest water you'll ever have. And the other thing I want to touch on is our lifeguards. There's a misconception that lifeguards are there to babysit and watch everybody. They are. They're going to do their job. They're going to make sure people don't drown. We want to make sure as a society that we're not putting too much on them, that we're watching our kids. I'm very heavily involved in the New Jersey drowning prevention. And I've been told as a manager that aren't lifeguards here to make sure I don't drown. Well, yeah, lifeguards are here to make sure you don't drown, but parents should also be watching their kids. This is not a situation where you walk into any pool or lifeguard or on the beach and you sit on your cell phone and you let your kid go play in the pool because there's a lifeguard. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has issues, but you got to watch your kids, even in your outdoor pools. I grew up, I had a pool in my backyard. My sister and I were never allowed to swim without each other. We were never allowed to swim alone. My mom was always somewhere nearby. She was always watching us. And I watch on cruise ships and at resorts where parents are on their cell phones sitting in the back. And if you Google for 5 minutes, you'll find a dozen situations in which the parent said, I was only gone for 30 seconds. I only took my eyes off him for a few seconds. It only takes a few seconds. And we have some of the most highly trained lifeguards in these water parks right now. We have Starguard lifeguards. We've had NASCO lifeguards. There's Ellis and Red Cross. They're all fantastic. The programs, we audit them every day. We retrain them every day. They go through their training constantly. We're auditing them throughout the day. We're watching them do their job all day long. We're audited by the national agency twice a year. The Department of Health comes in and checks on them. The ride department comes in and checks on them. Our guests check on them. So I know that we have the safest facility that we can possibly have because I know that the guards are there. And I'm never going to put my guards in a situation where they have too much to look at. I'm never going to put, as the manager, my guards in a situation. If you walk into a pool at your local whatever, and there's dozens and dozens of kids in the pool, and one poor lifeguard is at the end of the pool trying to manage the whole thing, I would think twice about going in that pool because you can't put that much on that lifeguard. We have to support the lifeguards. We have to make sure that they're getting the support they need. And we do everything we can. We have 70 to 100 lifeguards that work in our facility throughout the day, 30 to 40 of them at any given time during the day for what, 7 rides. So we're highly over managed with that. And that's important. There have been tragedies in this industry before, and we're learning from all those mistakes. We make sure that we're paying attention to that. And when something does happen, then we course correct and make sure that won't ever happen again. And that's the other part of being a part of these communities with the World Waterpark Association, with National Drowning Prevention, with our world's largest swimming lesson that we're having in June. We're going to, over the last couple of years, there's been this world's largest swimming lesson. Swim lessons save lives, right? When you teach your kids how to swim, they save lives. They can self-rescue themselves and it will prevent drowning. So we're going to be a part this year of the world's largest swimming lesson. I've been a part of it in the past with other parks. It's a world record Guinness attempt to have the most swim lessons happen at one time across the world. And it happens everywhere from Dubai, through Europe, through the United States, through Mexico, through Canada. And every year the World Waterpark Association spearheads this. And we have broke the record every year over, I think, the last 10 years. So we're going to go again, and we're going to keep doing this. And we're going to keep building that. And I would love for everybody to keep an eye on our website and sign up and come down and support that movement to make sure that we're teaching our kids how to swim and making sure that they're paying attention to the water and that the parents understand how important and how dangerous the water can be, from your pool to the ocean to riding on a boat, being in a water park. Lifeguards are there to help. Lifeguards are there to watch the water, but they can't do everything. There's my PSA for the day. That's my mountain. I'll stand on it. I'll die on it. Water safety and watching your kids. If you have a backyard pool, keep an eye on your kids. Don't let them get in the pool without you watching, and don't be on your cell phone while they're there. It only takes 30 seconds for a child to drown, and it's happened in that amount of time, and you won't know. They're just going to slip under the water silently, and you're not going to hear it. It's not going to be what you think it is. So there's my PSA for the day.
I want to drill down on one or two of those things. First, the world record for the most simultaneous swimming lessons given at any single time around the world, led by the World Waterpark Association. Do I have that? As far as your participation at the water park, is that something that will take place on site in June?
Yeah, it'll be in the park. It'll be probably earlier in the morning during the week. There's a date. I have to look up the date. I think it's June 20th. Yeah.
What's the record so far? Do you know offhand?
It's tens of thousands, I think.
In terms of getting in, like, admission to that at OC Water Park, can folks just show up, or is that like you need a ticket to come?
We're going to pre-register. It'll be free, but you're going to need to register ahead of time. So we'll have some sort of registration on our site for you to come in so we can get your child's name and age and swimming abilities so that we can get them into groups so that when we have the event, we can make sure that we're pairing up the lifeguards with the students the right way and that we have enough t-shirts and giveaways and stuff for everybody.
That is wonderful. I love that. And to your point about relying on the lifeguard, who is responsible really for saving people's lives in the water, relying on those people as your babysitters, that prospect is very disheartening. I really wish people wouldn't do that. In any case, I'll get off my soap.
It's a good soapbox to be on. It's okay. I ask that people who think, oh, it won't happen to me, just Google for 5 minutes. And if you spend 5 minutes on Google, you will never take your eyes off your children in the water again. And that's all I want. If anything else in the world, I want people to watch their kids in the water because so many of these things could be changed the outcomes could have been different if they were paying attention. And it's heartbreaking to the parents because it's not their fault necessarily. They didn't know a lot of times and they didn't realize. So making that awareness could save children's lives.
But I can speak from experience that parenting is bloody difficult, but the kids deserve better than for the parent to be on the cell phone, especially while in a swimming pool. Anyway, moving on, it's very encouraging to hear the ratio of lifeguards to swimmers. The abundance of lifeguards is wonderful, right? On average, if you have 70 to 100 lifeguards, which is just like impressive to say the least, what is roughly the ratio there?
It really depends on the area of the park. Like you'll have the river, you'll probably have a lifeguard every 15, 20 feet in the river. The lifeguards all can see each other. They all have overlapping zones. So where one ends, another one begins. But in some of our deep pool, in the splashdown slide that I was talking about with the 10-foot pool, we actually have 2 guards on that pool. It's only about 20 feet wide. And there's only at most 1 to 2 guests in that pool at any given time. So it could be upwards of a 1-to-1 ratio of lifeguard to people. And that's because that ride is so turbulent and it throws you through the air. And even the best of swimmers have gotten rescued out of that pool. But in a lot of our rides, it is a 1-to-1 ratio. And we are 1 in, 1 out, making sure that every person that enters that pool comes out of that pool. And every person that comes down that slide comes out the other end of the slide. And that is obviously our ultimate goal, right? The body slide pool has 2 guards on it most of the time on other days. But what we'll do is if there's less guards, then we'll operate differently. So if there's only 1 guard, say we're having a tough day or there's something going on or there's not as many people in the park, we'll only allow 1 person into the pool at a time. So we'll alternate the slides. So instead of having the guard have to rescue both people, we'll alternate the slides so they only have 1 at a time. So operationally, we help the lifeguards make sure that they're able to do the job they need to do on a daily basis. But I would say that we're at best overguarded. And it breaks my heart when I hear stories of other lifeguards at other places who are sitting on a giant pool by themselves with hundreds of camp kids. And it's just not fair to them. And if you see that happening in the world, please bring it to someone's attention because these lifeguards are working their butts off to try to do their job. And a lot of times they're taken for granted. Oh, they're a lifeguard. They can take care of that. So again, my soapbox. I support lifeguards no matter where they are. And I want them all to have a positive experience. They're important. They're important in saving the lives of the kids that are swimming in their pools. But if we're not managing them properly, we're not giving them the tools to do what they need to do. And the outcomes become bad.
Cool. Well, you made a few interesting comments behind the scene. I'm thinking about what sort of environmental considerations have you all got in place?
Water parks are inherently water hogs. We're going to backwash. We're going to send water to waste. We're going to have, when people come out of the pool, they drip water off. So we're constantly filling and adding more water in. We have an extremely effective filtration system that a majority of that water and most of that water is cleaned and processed and kept on the property. We don't lose a lot of it. We don't lose as much as we could. It behooves us to keep as much water here as possible because once we get it clean and in good shape, we want to keep it, right? We don't want it to go. We don't want to lose that water. We have over the last couple of years been actively fixing leaks, making sure that we're not losing more water. And our water usage has gone down in the last 3 years. Every year, there's a significant decrease in the amount of water we're using. So we are actively plugging holes and making sure that we're not losing water in places that we shouldn't be losing water from. Putting up walls on splash areas. So if we have an area on a pool that splashes over and we're losing water there, we're actively talking about putting up walls to make sure that we're containing that water. Because as much of an environmental impact as it is, it's also a monetary impact for our park. No one wants to spend that extra money on water. The last thing I want to do is spend more money on water. I'd rather keep the water clean and keep the property than offload it somehow, either through people walking off the rides or through the splash. But it's a naked beast with the water park. I wish that we could just pull water off the ocean and put it back. That would be great. That would be wonderful. But we don't use salt water. So all of our water is fresh water. And it's like I said, we do hold 750,000 gallons in the pools. So there's a good amount of water that once we fill up for the year, that we hold on to and we keep until the end of the year. And when we put it back into the environment, when we empty the pools at the end of the year, we have to make sure that And again, regulation, and we're on top of this. All the chlorine is dissipated out, all of the chemicals are out of the pools when we do put it back into the systems. We can't put chlorinated water back into the sewer systems because it'll mess up the systems. So we have to wait. We burn off the chlorine, we get it down to a just normal, average, everyday water, and then we can release it. And then we're done for the year.
There's a whole body of knowledge right there that I'm sure doesn't cross most people's mind.
We're working on some things with solar and adding in some slightly, there's a lot of talk in the industry about how we can be better with the environment and how we can share those things. We have slide towers that would be great for solar panels. We're just trying to figure out how to best do that. Water and electricity don't mix very well. So you don't like to put a lot of electricity where the water is. There's more regulation that comes with that. So it's a complicated beast, but we are putting things in. We're putting solar lights in. We're adding more efficient equipment in order to reduce our impact on the environment as well as our impact on our budget at the end of the year. You typically come hand in hand, so it works out in our favor.
I guess before moving on from the environmental piece, is there anything worth mentioning now or in the future, perhaps beyond the prospect of solar in terms of eco-friendly practices in place?
I mean, we're trying to replace a lot of our lighting with LED lighting and solar whenever possible. Like I said, it's very complicated to retrofit older facilities when it's not already built in. But everything we're looking to do is more energy efficient. Everything from the pumps and the motors to the chemical feed systems to any new part that we're putting into the park is going to inherently be better when you're dealing with a 30-year-old part versus a new part. All of those big halogen bulbs are going to get replaced. So organically moving in that direction, but also actively trying to make sure that we're making the right decisions, both financially and for the environment moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. That sounds responsible of you. Is there an angle in there somewhere for either the local or the state governments to provide assistance in terms of helping you, reach eco-friendly goals, for lack of a less naive expression?
It gets a little more complicated because it's a private business.
Mhm.
There are some things going on the boardwalk. There's beach replenishment and a lot of grants that go into keeping the boardwalk alive. We're always keeping our eye out for things that could potentially be beneficial to us. And when we do fit into those categories, we are pursuing them as much as we can. There's a lot of things with health and safety, with life jackets, and there's grants for AEDs and those things. Unfortunately, we don't fall into a lot of those categories because they're meant a lot of times for nonprofits and for government camps and agencies and pools to make sure that they're keeping up with the standards. I think commercially, your bigger water parks are inherently doing those things anyway because it's the right thing to do and because money isn't as much of a barrier as it is to smaller pools and recreations and community owned places that do have much more strict budgets than we have because of the very nature of it's a public service and it's not necessarily generating the revenue. It's more of a perk to living in that community. So we're behind that. We keep an eye out. We do have government relation groups within the World Water Park that do specifically keep an eye on those things. There are committees within the Water Park Association that are devoted to government relations and regulatory information. I'm on a food and beverage committee that deals with food and food regulation within the industry. So there are many groups keeping an eye out for that stuff. And when we do see it, we do jump on it.
Very cool. Yeah, interesting. Thank you for that. All right. You said a lot of interesting things about the behind the scenes of the park, the work that goes into ensuring guest safety, right? I'm very impressed by the effort and the thought put into the safety and the frequency with which you may mention that you are going to multiple conferences throughout the year, learning new things, and you come back and you immediately train your crew on the latest best practices and so on and so forth. Frankly, that sounds just like a great experience as an employee. Maybe let's talk about that for a bit. Thinking back to my experience as a kid, all the random odd jobs that I did, I don't know if any of them stand out as really having been that much of an educational, let alone a transformative experience. But what's it like, so to speak, to be a member of the team? What does that experience, what does that culture look like at the Waterpark?
It changes from person to person. I think there's a certain person that does well in this environment, a certain person that doesn't. But I think overall, there's a burden on me to a lot of these kids, it's their first job, right? This is the first time they've been into the world. It's the first time that they've been in the workforce. So there's a responsibility for me to make that a positive experience. And I want them to get off on the right foot. And I want them to get all the information they need and it not be a puzzle for them. I want it to be clear and concise. And I want the training to be clear. I want them to know what's expected of them when they walk on that property for the first time. When they step into that uniform and they go out in front of the first guest, they already have most likely hours of training in what to expect and how to solve the problems that we know are going to happen, that we're going to prepare them for ahead of time so that they're not caught in excitement of everything that's going on. They're going to know how to fix that problem or fix a wristband or answer that question because we're going to go through a lot of that in training. I want them to have the best experience. I mean, you'll talk to some of my old employees. I've been doing this for 28 years. And through the magic of Facebook and social media, I've been able to stay connected with a lot of our employees. And I get a lot of things like, the water park soundtrack has really ruined weddings for me for the rest of my life because you hear the same music. It's a lot of like that top 10 popular culture music that everyone listens to. Like, oh, you ruined it for me. I can't stand next to a pool because I can't not lifeguard it. Or whenever I hear a whistle, I jump. And like, those are good things. Those are things that we did the right thing. But more than anything, I want them to come back and be like, I'm so glad we had this experience because it helped me in the future. I've dealt with international students. We've dealt with, high school students, college students, full-grown adults, senior citizens. Senior citizens are the best employees. They're great. To any of your listeners who are senior citizens who want to come out and work for the summer, we're happy to have you. They mesh really well with the teenagers. Ironically, they're a lot of fun together. When you have these two generations that are doing the same thing, it creates this really fun environment where everybody's welcome. We deal with kids with different types of handicaps, and we encourage those kids to come and work. And we're pulling in kids from all over. We have the unique ability to offer jobs to kids who have special needs because of the nature of some of the jobs. And they still get to be a part of the bigger team. They're not just over on the side. They're in the team, doing with the team, and the kids help them and they get that job experience too. And we're blessed to have the ability to offer those jobs. But the kids, they're my kids. I've always made the joke that these are my kids from the teachers and the parents give them up from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And then I give them back to the teachers. All my friends who are teachers, I'm like, thank you. I had them for the 2 months that you didn't have them. I'm giving them back now. They're yours again. The parents kind of full the whole season, but the teachers and I flip flop off. We're like, okay. They're like, okay, it's your turn now. You get the summer. I get off. I'll take them in the winter. But they're teenagers. A majority of my staff, probably 90% or more of my staff is under 18. I run an entire water park off of 18-year-olds. And they have their own challenges and they are, they get a lot of flack. This generation's getting a lot of flack for being lazy or not, wanting to do. And really, I think where that is we're not adapting to how we're training them. We're not following them. We're not paying attention to what they need. And when we adjust to help them, then we all do better. The kids are more successful. We're more successful. We're not ripping our hair out all day long because we've realized through the years that as the children change and as the employees are changing and the generations are changing, then so does the training. We can't give the same training we gave 20 years ago to the kids today because it doesn't mean anything. There's a whole different set of rules. There's a whole different set of norms and ethics. So we have to continue to change to be the best employer for them. Now there's social media and there's all these new rules. When I worked in Seaside for a summer, I was there with the Jersey Shore. And one of the things that we never accounted for was our employees possibly being on television in a less than wonderful situation in the back of like Snooki or, having these things. So we had to add into our training a reminder that being on national television in your uniform could pose a problem. Not that this happened, but we needed to stay on top of it to make sure that we were covered and to make sure that our employees understood that when they're hanging out at night that they can't have their uniform on because now they're representing. I had an employee, it was really funny, in the middle of a hurricane. I had a bunch of international students at my house because we brought them off the island. This was when I was up in Seaside. We brought them off the island. They were at my house hanging out and we're watching TV, and on the Weather Channel, we see this lifeguard running across the back of the screen behind the reporter. And my J1 students are going, oh my gosh, that's Matt. And he's running in his lifeguard uniform behind the newscaster. It was hysterical. But you're like, you have to think of these things and we have to keep moving forward. But, to bring it back, these kids form a family over the summer. My J1 students, when they come in, I'm their parent for the summer. They don't have anything else. I can't even imagine going into another country, getting a job in a foreign country, knowing nothing. I would hope that if I sent my kids somewhere else, that they would have someone there to take care of them as well. And they're the hardest working kids in the world. I don't care. They're wonderful. The fact that they're doing what they're doing. But my local students, I always joke they learn more from our J1 students than the J1 students learn from us because our kids aren't exposed to people from, other parts of the world as much. More now, but 10, 15 years ago when we started this, they had no idea. They still thought that my Polish kids went to school on donkeys and they would make jokes. And I'm like, and the Polish kids are funny. They're like, yeah, no, that's not how it works. It's exactly like it is for you. It's no big deal. And that changes now because the world continues to get smaller. But our kids, they'll go out at night. They'll hang out at employee parties. We have slide nights and where we allow them to come and play on the rides. They don't get to play on the rides all day long when everybody else does, but we give them their own time. We will lifeguard for them. We'll get out on stand. We'll watch the rides. We'll dispatch them. We'll make food for them. We'll have events for them. And they go out and they walk the boardwalk at night together, or they'll go play golf several times. They show up. They're like, Christine, could we all play golf tonight? Sure. And I have pictures of 15, 20 of them playing golf together on the boardwalk, or they go to the beach, or as long as they don't all take the same day off to go somewhere, then I'm okay with it. It becomes a problem. But they form these relationships. I have relationships with people that I've worked with who were now full grown adults. They're getting married, they're having kids, and we're still connecting. And we've always connected on this level where, shared experiences and your first job and the first people you got to be with. We're trying to provide that for our kids. And, I always call them my kids, whether they're senior citizens or whether they're 14 years old, they're all my kids and they're all my responsibility all summer. And it's my responsibility to make sure they're having a good time and that they're enjoying their experience and that they come back next year because I need them. Now that I've trained them, I need them and they're wonderful. And I think the kids are great. So
That sounds all so endearing. It makes me feel like I missed an opportunity when I was young to work someplace that actually I enjoyed. Anyway, what's the sort of head count? Like how many folks are you hiring?
we're in the 150 to 175. And
Okay.
that's total. That's
Yeah.
total for the year. Obviously, they don't all work at one time. We have kids that work 7 days a week. We have kids that work 1 or 2 days a week. We have some that work 4 hours a day, and we have some that work 8 to 10 hours a day. It just depends on their age and the ability. We have a lot of rules that we need to follow with the Department of Labor. And when we're dealing with minors, which we deal almost 100% with, there are restrictions. They have to have breaks. They come in at certain times. They can only work till certain times. One of the things I know more than most HR professionals is the minor rules and how to manage that. We had the Federal Department of Labor stop by a couple years ago, and they just came in to kind of check on things and make sure, they do that. They stop at different businesses. And after about 5 minutes talking to me, he folded up his book. He goes, "You actually probably know this stuff better than I do." Like, well, we document them on their name tags. We know how old they are. We keep an eye on them. We schedule them very specifically. We create our schedules around their ages. So if you're 14 or 15, you're going to be on a certain schedule versus if you're an 18-year-old, you're going to be on a different group of schedules because you don't have as many restrictions as the 14 and 15-year-olds. So we very much plan our operational world around those things.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a whole nother, I feel like each one of these questions is its own podcast. The full 150 person head count or close to it is seasonal. And you're opening up hiring, did you say from February 1st every year to refill every one of those roles?
Yeah.
Or
So all of our employees rehire every year. So we'll send out emails in February. We'll give the rehires a couple weeks to get their information in, their paperwork in. And then usually around March, we'll start interviewing new people. We'll get 50 to 60 to 75% rehires every year.
Wow,
which is where we want to be. We want the kids to come back year after year. It makes it easier on everybody. My first year, we had 100% new when I started here. But since then, we've had 50+% rehires, which is super helpful. And we're starting now to be able to build, after 3 or 4 years, we're building that future management team. We're able to there's 2 girls that have worked with us for the last 3 years and started just as cashiers in foods. And they're finally now up to, they're going to manage food service this year. They've been with us long enough. We've given them the training. We're working with them every year. And now they're going to hopefully move on to run the department. So we're building that. And as we're moving forward, we're creating these. And I know these kids aren't going to stay with me forever, but it's, again, our responsibility to make sure we're training them well. So that when they go to the next place, when they see OC Waterpark on their resume and they're local, they know these kids had a good start. They know they had good training. It wasn't just a flash in the pan. They have good habits because we've forced them to have those good habits.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like that very much. I think, yeah, I'm excited for this to get out, for people to hear this. Yep, people to know you and your program. What does this management team look like? And I think beyond that, what are the set of teams that you're managing that make up the broader team, if you will?
Very surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the management team is exceptionally small. We have 2 full-time people in the entire park, my husband and I. We do have kind of a part-time, full-time staff. That's like our maintenance manager works all year round, but he's like an hourly, kind of comes and goes depending on if we need him. And our hospitality manager is now becoming a full-time position. But for the last 3 years, there was only 2 full-time people. So we're up to almost 4 now. And between my husband and I, between the director of operations and myself, we're running all the departments. We do have seasonal supervisors that are typically teachers and college students who are running aquatics on a day-to-day basis, kind of keeping an eye on them, aquatics and foods and hospitality and admissions and maintenance, which maintenance is maintenance, but it's also pool cleaning and keeping the pools crystal clear, sweeping the decks, cleaning up things, spills, making sure the tables are clean. So we're really running a supervisor training program too. So we kind of keep an eye on all of them. So the management team is extremely, extremely small, but we're building that seasonal supervisor team more and more every year. Bringing people from the outside doesn't always work because this is a world in which things don't operate normally. Take food service, for example. It's kind of like fast food and kind of like a restaurant and a resort all kind of rolled into one. So it's fast, but it's slow. It starts out slow. We get a huge rush at lunchtime. And my cooks are 16 and 17-year-old kids. Most of these kids, we have to teach them how to cook because they've never even cooked a burger on their own. They've never had these experiences. So we're teaching them from the ground up. We're teaching them all of their serve safe, all of their safety stuff. And then now that we have these kids trained up and doing things the right way, now we can create this management team. We've brought in people from the outside. They don't last very long. They're either overwhelmed by what's happening, or it's so different from the restaurant world that they're just not happy. They don't last very long. So in the water park world, we kind of have to train up and create our own people. And they do really well in other places. We just have trouble bringing other people into us. Our kids adapt well. When one day you have 0 people in the park and the next day you're flooded because it's 4th of July and it's the busiest you've ever seen it, they learn to adapt very quickly and easily. Cabanas. We have cabanas. So we have cabana servers and we have wait staff. And that's extremely important because these are high paying guests. And you have ice cream stands and we're making pretzels and we're doing all these things that are unique that you don't get in a McDonald's. You don't get them in a restaurant. So hopefully these kids will go out and have the skill set to go somewhere else. But also it's very difficult for us to bring them in. So it's important for us to train and create our own management movement upwards throughout the park. And now with year 3 or 4 that we're going into now, we've built that team. And now we have a good solid group of college kids and high school kids who are moving into those roles and performing wonderfully, which only makes everybody's job easier in the long run because we don't have to run around as much.
Yeah, I can't imagine the inside, right? You know, having started with a relative clean slate, or almost with a proverbial, literal clean slate, the funny sentence, you know, without any documentation or without any protocol, I imagine it's very convenient to have folks, at the very least, to have those sort of, you know, the knowledge and the ways of working documented. Now with folks who know how things run, that and you know, they can educate others that come on board. That must make life a lot easier and things run a bit more smoothly. Yeah.
And we're always recreating that stuff, right? So yeah, there were some manuals in the past and I created some when I first got here. But even last year, we took our foods manual and we rewrote it because we realized that there was things in there that didn't make sense, that our staff was going through and we were training them through these manuals and they were getting out in the food stand. And they're like, it isn't you said it was going to be like this and it isn't like that. Or the register changed, or it's a different receipt printer, or my clean team, they didn't really have a manual. They were just giving, like, here's a spray bottle and a rag, go wipe down the tables. So we've created the manual so that now they know specifically what they're supposed to use, how they're supposed to use it, how often they're supposed to use it. So everything is laid out very easily so that if someday this management team moves on and I go somewhere else, that the next person that comes in will have everything they need to operate the park the way they're supposed to, and that the kids will transfer seamlessly, and that they'll be able to continue a fluent future at this park. My legacy lands in the next manager. Whether or not my legacy can continue on plays a lot in what we do every year and how we create those programs and how we update them constantly to make sure they're up to par, to make sure they're up to code, and make sure that they're not, you can read some of these old manuals and you laugh, like, this stuff just doesn't exist anymore. Everything's so antiquated. So if you're not constantly refreshing and updating, then you're doing yourself and your staff a disservice, and you're not giving them the tools they need to succeed. And if they succeed, we succeed. And if we succeed, everybody succeeds. So it comes from the top down. But we don't have a fancy HR department or an accounting department. We offshoot some of our marketing stuff. We have a marketing consultant we work with that I've worked with for 20 years. We work together at Six Flags. He's wonderful. So we do sub out some things, but I'm the HR manager, and my husband and I do the hiring, and we do the payroll, and we do the QuickBooks, and we do the taxes, and everything there is to do. So it's very much a family. Everybody has their role. We have to make sure that everyone's doing it, but we also have to keep an eye on them too, to make sure that they're holding up. So we spend a lot of time out in the park side by side with the kids to make sure that they're comfortable and that everything's going the way it's supposed to. It's important to us that they are having a good time. If they're not having a good time, then what are we all doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just makes my job harder when they're not having fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. Very cool. I swear it's the movie that needs to be. And so it's very cool.
You put a room of water park operators together, you're going to get yourself a sitcom. Trust me.
Yeah. Get out of here with the Jersey Shore. This is the OC Water Park, at the shore. Okay. So quickly, I'm curious to explore, sort of alluded to it before, the customer experience, and tangential to that, if you will, is the relationship and the engagement with the community, right? I think, well, perhaps those are two very different topics, but in the way of customer experience and customer feedback, right? What does that look like from the inside? How do you approach that, if you will?
So we're always listening to the customers, obviously. It sounds like an easy answer, but we do surveys after birthday parties and after cabana rentals. We ask the tough questions. I had a boss once tell me that we did some sort of survey. I was actually an employee survey, but we also do the customer surveys. And we were talking about what questions to ask. And a lot of people in the room were like, I don't want to ask that question. Well, why do you want to ask that question? Because you don't want to know the answer to that question. That's why you don't want to ask that question. And if you're not asking those questions, then what are you even doing, right? So we want to hear what you have to say. We want you to do the Google reviews. We have little cards and we have QR codes on the way out of the park. We want you to be honest because we want to have an opportunity to fix it. Something I tell my staff and I tell my guests, I can't fix a problem I don't know about. If I didn't know that you had a problem that day, nothing frustrates me more than when someone goes on Facebook and says something that happened during the day that I didn't have an opportunity to adjust at that point in time, that I didn't have an opportunity to fix, because I would have fixed that problem, or I would have explained why the problem was the problem. I got nothing to hide. We're not doing anything super secret here. I have nothing to hide from my guests. If we close down because of thunder and lightning, one of our guests had a problem with, it was sunny out and we had shut all the rides down for thunder and lightning. We'd shut the park down. And what they didn't understand, they went home and they screamed about it on Facebook and they posted pictures of the sun in the sky and why the rides were all closed and we're terrible and, whatever, trying to steal your money, all those things. But what actually was happening is there was a storm. It was on the other side of the bay. It was within 11 miles or 10 miles or, there's a certain distance in which we have to shut down rides because lightning travels in long distances. I don't want to shut the rides down if it's sunny out. That's the last thing I want to do. But we do have to do that. And what we've done is we've incorporated better messages to our guests, better safety messages. We're shutting down the rides. They'll be open soon. Talk to us if you have a problem. We're going to make this right. Stop at the gate on your way out. If we shut down for rain and you decide to leave for the day, we're going to give you a pass to come back because I don't want to ruin your day. And I know that if you come back, you're going to come back. and you're going to enjoy that day. And it doesn't hurt us it hurts me more that you walk out unhappy. And that 10, 15 years ago, there was a strong push in water parks that if it rained, there was no refunds, no guarantees, blah, 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 nothing that you were out of money, you were out of luck if you were in the park 5 minutes or an hour. And what started happening is parks started changing that. And they're like, well, why don't we just give them passes to come back again? Why are we ruining this day? Because what was happening is people were going home upset and mad. And they were going on Facebook and they were posting that we're all in it for the money and it's this and that. And we're just trying to do what has always been done. So a group of water park operators were like, why are we doing this? Why are we constantly creating areas in which we're upsetting our guests? So let's just give them passes to come back again. Some of them won't use them again, and that's fine. But in a world in which everyone then walks away with a ticket and they're happy and they're going to come back and they want to come back because we did the right thing for them. And that's what the opportunities we want. And then those Google reviews, I often reach out. I get Facebooks all the time. I'm like, if you have a problem, Facebook message me. And I'm the one answering the Facebook messages. I'm the one answering the emails. You're getting the general manager. When you send a Facebook message, you're getting the general manager answering that question. I do try to pawn it off on my hospitality manager every once in a while, but more often than not, it's just easier for me to answer it. And I want those guests to be happy. I'll post on Facebook. And if someone says something, I'll be like, hey, reach out to me. I need to fix this problem. When we do our surveys, again, like I said, we're asking them difficult questions. Were the bathrooms clean? Were these things? Like parks that don't engage those answers and those questions know that there's a problem and they don't want to illustrate that problem. They don't want upper management to know there's a problem. I personally want to know those problems because I want to fix them so that we don't have problems in the future. Because if one person's complaining about it, there's 10 other people who didn't complain about it who still felt the same way. And there's a statistic out there that says that if you have a good experience, you'll tell 3 people. But if you have a bad experience, you'll tell 50. Well, I don't want you to have a bad experience. I want an opportunity to fix that experience. So a lot of times we'll seek out people, and my staff is kind of trained to keep an eye out for people who look like they're having a bad day or that have looked like they're in trouble or that they're confused or that something's wrong. And we'll try to seek them out and make sure that everything's okay with them. Make sure that we've done everything we can to fix their problem. Make sure it's not just something within their world or something that we can fix. We get the complaints about it seems overcrowded. Well, it seems overcrowded, but it's not overcrowded. When you really break it down and you talk to them, like, well, how long did you really wait on that ride? Well, I only waited about 5 minutes. Well, it looks crowded, but it's not. So keep an eye on those things and let me talk to you. I'll stand in the hallways. I'll stand out and I'll talk, say hi to people. And more often than not, most people are having a great time. But if I can pick out those 1 or 2 that have questions or are confused about something and I can fix that ahead of time, that's a win for us. And those guests are just as much of our family as everybody else. When these guests have been coming here their whole lives and their kids are now coming here and their kids are working here and it was their first job, that interaction with our town and with Ocean City in general is super important. We want to make sure that we're promoting that moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, that's always the hardest problem, especially with, the world as it is today. The advent of social media. Everyone is quick to hop on. It's kind of ironic though, folks who are having a bad day and they want to tell the world about it. It's like you indulge and get that gratification, I guess, by bringing someone else down. But I really don't understand that because apart from the fact that it's just easier to do than go seek out it.
Just send me a message before you post. Give me an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, more often than not, we joke in the office when we get those bad Facebook messages. It's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to the person. I'm going to talk to them. And inevitably, by some sort of end of conversation, we're best friends. And posts are being taken down. And the realization of what really happened and how we tried to help and what we did is made a little more clear. And people sometimes have that, they have that anger right then and there. They just need to come down for a second, figure out, see what's going on, talk to a real person who can explain what's going on in maybe a way that they didn't understand before, but give us that opportunity. Let me screw that up. If I screw that up and I don't give you what you need in those messages, go on Facebook and I probably deserve it. But give me the opportunity first. That's all I ask for.
Yeah, even from experience, I can agree, acknowledge the sort of the discomfort that comes along with trying to confront someone face to face and complain it. At least me, I'm probably too nice. I know people very close to me, even who's happy to go and heap feedback that, perhaps not overtly negative. But I think it's important to say that the big sort of enterprise, the faceless organizations that don't seek feedback, however hard it may be to solicit and actually receive feedback, positive or negative. It's clear that your heart's in the right place. You literally refer to everyone as your family, right? It's clearly in your best interest to keep it. If only it were so easy to do that all the time. I wonder if maybe some sort of email follow-up, less intrusive, less invasive, to solicit that feedback, positive or negative, would make that easier. You said you had something like that in place. Did I catch that right?
Yeah, we do a couple feedback surveys with our cabanas and with our birthday parties, just to kind of make sure that we're providing that the level of service that we want to provide. We've talked multiple times about sending out mass surveys. It's just something that we have to put together and that we have to get together. We do a ton of Google. I put out the QR codes everywhere to give everybody an opportunity, whether you're upset or not. I want you to let us know again so that I can fix those problems. If you think the bathrooms are disgusting and ugly and dirty, let me know. Like, I will take constructive feedback, but I think on my side, I also have to be able to receive that feedback, right? You have to be able to be like, no, our bathrooms are clean. I'm like, no, okay, if that's how you felt about it, our bathrooms, we're remodeling this year. We're putting new floors in, we're doing a whole remodel. And what the problem was is they were so old, they were clean. I know they were clean because I would clean them. Like, it was me that was cleaning them, scrubbing toilets at night. And, my family, we would be in there at night scrubbing toilets. So I knew they were clean, but because they were so old, they didn't feel clean. They had this old brown tile floor and old stuff, old ceiling tiles. So there was this perception of uncleanliness. So we worked hard to add things in that accentuated the fact that we were in fact cleaning these bathrooms and they were clean and that all these areas were clean. Now, did we miss a couple areas around the park? Sure. Did we have areas that we missed that people pointed out on Facebook? Sure. And we remedied them immediately. We didn't realize they were happening. We took it for granted. We didn't realize it was as big of a problem as it was. And we remedied them immediately. Spent hours power washing things. And we were out there doing what we needed to do to make sure that it didn't happen again. I'll make a mistake. I will never make the same mistake twice. You can hold me to that one. You will never catch me on the same thing twice. And the staff knows that too. But they also know that's what we're here for. I can't emphasize enough how much we want and need our guests to have a great time, for everybody involved, for our staff, for the management team, for our ownership, for Ocean City in general. I mean, I think having a water park in Ocean City is a wonderful part of Ocean City. It extends the average stay. It allows for other things to be done while you spend your week in Ocean City. Instead of just a weekend, you can now spend a week because you have theme parks and you have the air bouncy water play thing in the bay, and you have the water park, and you have jet skis, and you have the beach you can go to several times, and you can go to escape rooms. Like, there's so much to do in Ocean City that it extends the stay and helps the town. So the more we can be a part of that, the better the entire product is for Ocean City.
I love that. And that's a really important point that I wanted to try to work at one way or another, the sort of spectrum of attraction, right, that exists in Ocean City. I think you play a crucial role in that, right? What does, I guess more broadly, in terms of the relationship with Ocean City and the other sort of attractions that exist on the boardwalk, what does that look like? Is there anything in there that's worth touching that you want to elaborate on? I'm curious to know what that sort of ecosystem looks like. You mentioned you're developing relationships now, but being on the inside, I'm curious to understand what that looks like.
There's a boardwalk association, a merchants association that we're a part of. The other relationships with other businesses on the boardwalk are extremely important to us. We're on one end of the boardwalk. There's a lot of activity that happens south of 8th Street or north of 8th Street, where Gillian's Wonderland is. We have the big food court with the music pier. The music pier kind of splits it, and we're on one side. But making sure that all of us are involved in what's going on, to make sure that at Easter time, the egg hunts travel the entire length of the boardwalk, and that we're involved in that, and that we're going to the fall Mall Madness sales, and we're representing ourselves at the things. But also, Manco and Mancos, we got together this year and we had a job fair on the boardwalk because we all realized that we all need employees and we all draw in our own separate sections of employees. But why don't we bring them all in together? And why don't we all get on this bandwagon together? We all need the employees. And sometimes someone wants to work at a pizza shop. Someone wants to work at a water park. Someone wants to work at a theme park. Someone wants to work as cleaning bathrooms. Everyone has their own thing, but why not bring them all into a place where they can see all the jobs at once, meet all the managers at once? We used to do it in Seaside, and it was a great situation because it was just one weekend. Everyone came out. You got to talk to all the employers and you got to pick your job for the summer. And it's a buyer's market right now, right? I want to work here. You have an opportunity to sell yourself. Here's your opportunity. So that relationship and making sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? We're developing relationships with our realtors. Our realtors are tightest connection to our visiting guests. Aside from the Chamber of Commerce, which does a fantastic job of getting information out and sending out email blasts, our realtors are really the glue between what's happening in town and those rentals. And they want to make sure that there's things for our rentals to do, but we also want access to those people. We want to make sure that they're having the best vacation they possibly can. So unless they're going to the bay and renting a jet ski or sitting on the beach or doing parasailing or going to the pier for at night or playing mini golf, we want to make sure that we have that, that week-long stay is as full and as jam-packed as possible and as affordable as possible. Everyone kind of talks about how expensive things are these days. And I think the more I think about it and the more I spend time out, the more I think a water park is probably one of the best bangs for your buck out there. If you take the price and you divide it out by 8 hours of your kids playing in the park all day long, and then you apply that same pricing strategy to other things, you're going to find real quick that it's a really good bargain. It should be probably much more expensive. You've got lifeguards and it's safe and it's wonderful and it's sunny and you can hang out and you can get a cabana and have someone wait on you hand and foot all day long, as opposed to renting a jet ski. How much does that cost for your family? I don't even want to begin to know. If you've been on a cruise lately and you go on an excursion, it's costing hundreds of dollars a person and you're getting an hour, 2 hours worth of fun. So when you start playing that out and you start looking at things, I think as an industry, water parks get a bad rap, right? They're like, oh, they're so expensive. They're not. They're great. They're great value for your buck. And like I said, they're safe and fun. And who doesn't love sliding down a water slide? And, it's fantastic.
Sort of thinking about that, somehow it didn't really occur to me that the value that you're talking about, it's kind of obvious, right? Because I feel like anywhere, there's all sorts of fun things to do on the boardwalk, and there's absolutely a time and a place for all of them. Something about entertaining kids and keeping kids happy, safe, fed, reasonably within reach. So not necessarily supervise every step that they take, right? But
And when your kids leave and they're half asleep and they sleep through the night after the full day at the park, it's a good day. You got your money's worth. If they're beat at the end of the night and they're sleeping on their way home, then you have won. And they'll remember those memories. They're like, oh, that pirate ship. And you'll take pictures. And when they get their first job at that same water park or that same place, when they become 15, 16 years old, you're going to be able to compare those pictures. I've seen the pictures. I have a couple on my staff right now who brought in pictures their mom found of them standing in the exact same spot as their first year as an employee as they did when they were 4 or 5 years old. Wow. And it's a beautiful thing.
I get that. That's, never has this resonated with me before. Like that, I think you've kind of helped me appreciate, what I did before. And maybe the water park becomes a new spot. But not just me, though. I think folks with kids, young kids or teenage kids or however old,
Like I said, we're adding a spray pad this year. So there's going to be even more opportunity to let those toddlers run around in circles for hours and tire themselves out. And the spray pad doesn't necessarily need as much oversight as a pool or someone's backyard or the ocean. They're kind of self-contained and they'll have kind of people watching them. And as long as you're in the vicinity, we're happy with that. And we're going to do specials for just the spray pad, I think. And we're going to try to open it earlier in the season so that we can get some of those preschool groups in there before the park opens, or maybe open it earlier in the morning so that they can or maybe just have a wristband for the spray pad so that our guests that maybe aren't ready for the bigger slides can just come in and do the spray pad. I mean, there's all stuff that we're working on right now as we're building that part of the park up.
A spray pad is like a sort of a sprinkler, so to speak, that comes up from the ground, right?
Well, there'll be like some elements and there'll be some tipping things, and it's not 100% set yet. It's in manufacturing right now, set to be open by the time we get here. But there's always things. I have a call at like 3:00 to go over some of the specifications and see what kind of elements we're going to have on it. It's something that we're adding that we're hoping that we can increase that people who have the older kids and the babies. So maybe the parents sit down by the spray pad while the teenagers go ride the big rides. And anything we can do to increase that group is good for us.
Yeah, that's great. I think, that adds something special to the experience. Cool. Okay. Let's see here. I think you've done well to touch on family friendly components.
I mean, one of the things you throw in there that we don't have the height restrictions. There's no height restrictions on our rides. And to that point, we do allow life jackets. Now, we always 100% encourage you to watch the rides and make sure that, evaluate your kid's skills versus how the people are coming out of the bottom of the rides, because some of them are a little more turbulent than others, but they can wear a life jacket. And as long as you're there, the lifeguards are there in case someone gets in trouble. So it really opens up. We have tubes that have bottoms in them so that when you put your toddler in the tube with you and you go down the slide, they don't fall through. So they stay there, or they're floating around the lazy river. I don't want to tell you how many infants and toddlers we've had floating around the lazy river sound asleep while mom's just floating around in the tube, and everybody's happy. Kids are happy, mom's happy, everybody's happy. It's just floating around, people watching, kids are taking a nap. It's great. So it is really very family oriented.
How long is the lazy river?
Long enough for a good nap. I don't know how many feet it is. It circles through the entire park though.
Okay.
And it does wind through. It's relatively long. It's probably hundreds of feet, at least 400 or 500 feet.
Is that something that I can get on a tube and just float on for hours, or is it limited? You try to.
No, you can be there all day.
Wow.
If you want to come to the park and just hang out in Lazy River all day, that is your prerogative. There are times when it gets super, super busy that we've considered like pulling people out on every cycle. We've not gotten there. And that would be a game time decision that we would let you know ahead of time if that was going to be the case. But for the most part, we have plenty of tubes and plenty of space for everybody to float around as long as they want. And we also have an activity pool that's just a regular pool that you can hang out into.
Got it. Interesting. What's your favorite ride, you think, in the park?
I like Splashdown. I love flying through the air and flying into that park. I think that you just don't get that. We used to have one of those in Seaside Heights when I worked there, and it was actually torn down because it was so old. They'd taken out that pool and added some new features over there. But it's so much fun to be able to cannonball fly through the air and fly into that pool. It's unique. You don't have them. I think there might still be one in Wildwood, but very few and far between. Not to mention the fact that the lazy rivers are fantastic. Like, who doesn't love just floating around in a lazy river all day?
Absolutely. Yeah. Which of those rides is the most popular, you think?
Most popular. I think the body slides tend to be super popular, but I think our pirate ship, I think the kiddie area is probably our most popular area in the park. We have a huge number of kids that come and just want to play around that pirate ship and just want to splash around in there. And it's always chock full of kids running around and screaming and laughing and having a good time. And there's always parents lined up around the outside taking pictures and having a blast. So I think that's one of our most popular areas. Second to like the body slides and the tube slides. Who doesn't love a super long body slide? It's so much fun. And at the end, you get thrown around. So it's a great slide too.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. What are some of the challenges that you faced? And contrast that, what do you find most rewarding in your experience so far?
Oh my gosh, the challenges, I could go on all day about the challenges we face. There's challenges in the park itself as it sits, but there's also challenges with getting to where we need to be, the staff, the training, maintenance and upkeep and day-to-day problems are its own beast, but rewarding. One on the first day that we had the park open, running around like a chicken with our head cut off. We were putting out fires left and right. Little things, printers not working, computers, internet went down in the middle of the day. We couldn't take credit cards. This is our very first day operating when I took over. Completely green staff. No one knew what to do. We had trained them all. We had worked them best we could, but it was new. None of them had worked in a water park before. The lifeguards were all like, we lifeguard, we don't know. And we've trained them on the rides and we've tested them and we've rode them with them. The staff did a phenomenal job. But I, of course, was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. It was obscene the amount of running we did. And just as I was that last hair was about to get pulled out, my husband stopped me and he said, come here, I want you to see something. And I'm like, I'm busy. I got to go fix something. He's like, stop, come here, come look at this. And ironically, this is something that I had done to my staff multiple times in the past, but no one has ever done it to me. Well, it was done to me the first time. He drugged me over to the kiddie area and he made me stop. And he pointed me towards a kiddie area and he said, look. And all I saw out there, I didn't see all the problems that I had throughout the day. I just saw kids laughing and screaming and parents taking pictures, and everybody in that area was having a good time, despite the fact that I was putting out fires like I was the best firefighter in the world, doing what I needed to do to make sure that was happening. My boss, one of my first bosses back at Hurricane Harbor, did the thing. I was running around. It was a Hurricane Harbor day. It was packed. It was, 10, 20 times the amount of people we do at this park. And people were splashing tubes in the river. It was overcrowded. The staffing was a mess. Like, it was Six Flags, huge issues. We didn't have staffing for the night. We were trying to shut rides down. It was a mess. I went into his office and I was like, we're not going to make it. This day is not going to end. This is it. This is done. I don't know if I can do this anymore. This is first, second year in. I'm like, I don't think this is not for me. And bless his heart, he's a Hall of Famer now in the water park world. He goes, let's go take a walk. And I was like, I really don't want to go out there. Too many people are mad at me out there. There's a lot of people in this park who've gotten into a fight with me today. Now this is back in Hurricane Harbor. And he's like, no, come on out. And I'm like, are you sure? Really, I've had a lot of fights with people today. It's not been great. He pulls me out to the bridge going out and exiting Hurricane Harbor. And we stood on the bridge. And he goes, we're going to stay on the bridge and we're going to say goodbye to people. And I'm still dragging my feet. I'm like, not great. Not a great idea. There's a lot of people out there not happy with me. And I started saying goodbye to people. And the more people I said goodbye to, the more I realized that there was literally thousands of people in the park who were having an amazing time because of what we were doing. And a very small portion of those people were the ones that we had run into with problems throughout the day and fixed all the problems that we had, but that we had constantly been having problems with that day for staffing issues, for tube issues, for any issues that we were having. I think that day the food manager didn't show up. There was a lot of stuff going on that particular day. But in saying goodbye, 99% of what we got was, oh, we can't wait to come back again. This was so great. We had such a great time. And really what we're doing every single day is to that end. I want to stand at the exit and I take my managers to the exit. I still do it with them now. And I make them say goodbye to people for two reasons. First of all, it's good for their psyche. It's good for them to understand that they've had a good day and they've had a good impact on people. But it's also good for our guests, obviously, to see that we're out there and that we care and that we can correct issues. If I see someone walking out and they're like, I had a horrible day, then I have an opportunity to fix that right then and there and to make that better. But when you see those smiling kids, when you see those parents who have the kids that are passed out on their shoulders and are just done for the day, and the parents are like, it was all worth it, whatever it was, however much long we ran around. And then you have the kids come back and they're like, oh, we used to come here all the time as a kid. We have these great memories and now we get to work here. And, that's why we do what we do, right? It's not about the money. It's not about all the problems. It's not about those things. It's about making sure that people have good experiences. All that other stuff comes with it. But if we're not doing it for those reasons, then we're not going to provide the product we need. So that sets really deep within what we do and why I do what I do. And why I love this park so much, because it is in that small town and it is that small. And I have the opportunity. It's not a big Six Flags park where I don't get to learn people and know people on an intimate level. It's more of a day-to-day. Whereas the people who come to our park come every year and they get to know you and you get to know their families and you get to see their families grow up and you get to see their kids grow up and you get to see the older employees and their younger brothers and sisters come in and they're like, oh, my little sister's going to start working here next year and she can't wait. And, so it becomes this whole circle of life, if you will, that makes it all worthwhile.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground from inside and out the park, and I've learned a lot, and I have a newfound appreciation and respect for the work that you do, for really just the amount of fun that you can have at the park. I genuinely, now, a super fan. And I don't know why I did this to myself recording in December when we can't go to the park, but it's all right.
Well, maybe we should do it again in July when we're open. We can do it outside on the boardwalk with the water in the background. We can talk about different things.
I would absolutely love to do that. Cool. So on that note, you've made mention a couple times of getting started earlier in the year, right? Both for hiring and for opening up early around Easter time. And of course, later the height of the season, it will naturally occur to people. It'll be top of mind. But are there any specific, apart from what you've said, or do you want to add more detail to any specific events, things that you want people to be aware of, even in terms of hiring folks, what should people be aware of?
Well, we start taking applications usually around February 1st. So it is more often than not a first come, first serve situation. So if you want to get in, you got to get in quick and early. We will sit on those applications for a little while. So be patient. Most of the people that get in early will get in. We do hire for attitude, not necessarily for experience. If you can swim, we can make you a lifeguard. You don't have to be an Olympic swimmer to be a lifeguard. I never was, and I've been doing it for 30 years now. Obviously, we're not beach guards, so it's not the same level of extreme swimming ability. Beach guards are a whole different animal. I respect them to the utmost and would help them do anything they need to do. But we're dealing with 5, 6, 7, 8 feet of water. Most of our water is under 3 feet deep. We train the most normal people to be lifeguards. We have senior citizen lifeguards. We have younger lifeguards. We have everything in between. We will train you from the ground up. Do not go out and get another certification and come to me because we're going to retrain you anyway. You do not need to be a lifeguard. You just need to know how to swim. If you want to work in foods or cleanup or admissions, we do fill up on 15, 16-year-olds very, very quickly because the jobs are limited. If you are a 15-year-old and you're looking for a job, those jobs are few and far between, especially on the boardwalk. We do hire a ton of 15-year-olds, but you have to get in early. That waiting list will get up to 100 people by March because we're one of the few that does hire a lot of them. But again, lifeguards, no experience necessary, no certifications needed. We will pay you, we will train you, we will pay to train you. We will pay for your certifications and we will work you as much or as little as you want all summer long. You'll get 40 hours a week if you want it. And we're going to pretty much make your schedule for the whole summer. So if you're going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday all summer long. We believe in setting schedules so that you can plan your summer around your schedule. We're not going to change your schedule every week. We're not going to give you a new schedule every week. We're going to try to keep it as consistent as possible. And as long as you give us time in advance, everybody goes on vacation in the summer. We get that. We're behind that. We understand that. Mom and dad plan vacations in the summer. Just let us know ahead of time so that we can fill those spots. And for those who don't have as many shifts per week, they're going to fill those spots because we hire people who just fill spots. So we're flexible. We don't require any training. We're a lot of fun to hang out with. Come apply. What more can we say?
Okay. And your message to visitors, right? So Easter is not officially help me understand that, right? So the park opens when?
So the water park opens usually around when school ends. So the end of June. Maybe Memorial Day this year. We're not sure. It depends on the weather. But we do have a huge Easter sale. So online, sometimes in person, depending on what the boardwalk looks like and what the weather. If Easter's good, then we'll have boardwalk sales. But we do open the golf in our Ben's Pretzel location. If you've not had a Ben's Pretzel yet, you have to come and find them. They wipe all the other pretzel brands off the map. Ben's Pretzels is, I'm going to say it, the best pretzel you'll ever have. Mark my words. Come out and try one. They're amazing. They're the first time on their East Coast. They're an Amish pretzel. There's something between an Annie Ann's and a Philly pretzel. They're like the happy space in between there, and they are phenomenal. I have not yet had someone try one that said that they didn't like them or that they weren't the best pretzel they've ever had. So we open our Ben's Pretzel location, and we also have our Quincy's Lobster Rolls, which is up in the front. They open usually around Easter. And we have our Buddy's Barbecue, which is barbecue on the boardwalk. It is phenomenal. It is family made with a family recipe. There's a family running that stand. There's a family running Quincy's. There's our family running the Ben's Pretzels and the golf. And all of our families obviously work together. And it's a beautiful thing. But if you want barbecue, lobster, and pretzels, we're the place to be.
I'm sold. Very good.
And that's Easter. And we'll have golf. Obviously, golf opens early. And then the water park opens as soon as it gets warm enough. It gets a little chilly on the boardwalk early in the spring, so we can't open too early. Not to mention the fact that a majority of our staff is still in school. So it gets really difficult for us to open before school's let out because we rely so heavily on teenagers and the ones that are in school, and we can't pull them out of school. So
got it. Very good. Okay. And to tease some of the things that we've been working on, I think probably still have to work out some of the finer details, but there will be a giveaway of some kind in partnership with South Jersey Insider, right? And that may take shape in the form of a getaway. It may take the shape of season passes, and more details will come as they get worked out. But there's at least one really exciting call it a giveaway for now in the works. And I'm very much looking forward to that.
We're very excited to have your listeners come and visit us and come and enjoy what is the OC Water Park.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm eager to explore some sort of ongoing series, whatever that looks like.
A day in the life of a water park.
I mean, there's just a story that has to be told there, right? And I know
I don't know if I can tell a lot of the stories. Some of the stories need to be kept like within the circles.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you do you, and we'll tailor that. Whatever that looks like.
We can tell a lot of them. There's some of them that are going to be a little more difficult than others, but most of them are good to tell. They're fun, and then as long as they have happy endings, we're good to tell them.
Copy that. Very good. Okay, Christine, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I'm sure everyone will appreciate this, and I very much look forward to whatever the future may bring.
Well, I had a lot of fun spending the afternoon chatting with you and sharing stories, and it just kind of reinvigorates our time this time of year. It helps to reinvigorate all that for us because we're moving into time right now where it's time to start planning for next year and start really hitting the ground running. And come in a day or two here, we're going to hit the ground running real hard and start putting all that hiring stuff together and start planning for the year. So it's excited to get out there and start chatting about it again between the holidays.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Very good. Until next time, you take care.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.